Are you talented but just can't put it all together? Or maybe you're someone who is just trying to improve their mental game to get to the next level. Well, I think you're on the right path. Today we're going to talk about things that maybe can improve your mental game, and also talk about why it's important to improve your mental game, because it can help you on and off the field. But we're also going to talk about, maybe, is it overblown? Do we talk about mental game too much? Let's talk about it. Whew. Wow. I think I'm live. I think we're ready to go. Oh, baby. How's everybody doing today? If you don't know, my name is Perci Garner, former Major League pitcher. And, I'm trying to help you guys possibly get to that level. But we got to crawl before we walk. Now, on this journey, it's going to be a good one. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. And, but we can't get there if you don't like and subscribe right now. We're looking at live streaming a lot. We just finished a podcast with Josh Harrison. And, possibly you getting some other professional baseball players, maybe some other ones. I'm not sure. My man Roman Quinn just signed with the Guardians, so I might be reaching out to him. But a lot of exciting things on the horizon. And if you're liking the content, please like and subscribe. Help this, get out in front of more eyeballs. But anyways, today we're going to be talking about the mental game. All right, mental health, whatever you want to call it. And there's some of my former teammates. We're going to steal some stuff from Brandon Geyer. He's got Major League Mindset course online. He was just on MLB Network talking about it. But I'm also going to be looking at what Trevor Bauer, granted, this was October of 2021. Maybe he thinks something different. But we're going to see what he says about mental baseball. We all know he's incredibly talented, incredibly gifted. But if he tells you, then he'll let you know that he worked for everything he had, which I believe him. So we're going to get into that. But yeah, we want to talk about, just some pillars that Brandon Geyer talked about that I agree with, that go along with improving your mental game. Now, the mental game to me is important because, yes, it can help you in sports, but more importantly, it helps you in life. And the stuff you learn in the mental game can help you with, wife, family, kids, job, everything. So, let's get into it and stop beating around the bush. But so the 4 things I want to talk about real quick are routine, self-discipline, perseverance, or the ability to overcome adversity, and then the big one, the big 4-letter word. No, not the one you're thinking about, fear. We're going to talk about fear, but we're going to say that for last. Now, if you look at me, I've struggled with my mental game, and, maybe because I didn't have that great of a routine, self-discipline wasn't there. I will say I am pretty good at overcoming adversity. Perseverance, I persevered through a lot of things in my life, and I don't think it's because of me, obviously. I think it's because of my spiritual beliefs, and I feel like God has, helped me through all those times, whether it be my parents, both of my parents passing away, struggles in my career, just a lot of things. We're not going to get into the details of that, but I just think these 4 things are pretty important when you're talking about the mental game, and they'll help you improve it. So let's just start with routine. So routine is something I struggled to get for the longest. High school, little league, all that stuff, I never had a routine. I've talked about this plenty of times on the podcast that I didn't like throwing too much before the game because I didn't want to waste all my bullets, which obviously is not very smart. But routine, it takes time to develop, and you can tweak things. But if you kind of hone in and maybe, focus in on what things you feel get you ready, and not just from your thoughts, but stuff that you've got backed up or experience with, showing that, okay, this gets me prepared for the game, whether it be physically or mentally. You got to figure out what those things are. Maybe write them down. If you've had a good day, kind of write down on the notepad, like, this is what I did today. And then you'll start to see, okay, what worked, what didn't. But we're also going to talk about not jumping off board of that routine just because you're going through some struggles. And that'll go into the next thing I want to talk about, which is self-discipline. Now, I think different points of my life I've had great self-discipline just because I've been taught it and it's been beat into my head from my parents and my coaches and teachers. But it started when I got off by myself in college. College is when it kind of got really off course. And I think once you commit to a routine, not saying that it should be the end all be all. Like, I talked about this before. I'm not sure if you guys saw the mic'd up that I think it was Adam Wainwright had, where he stressed, do not let your routine become superstition, which I think is perfect. You don't want to feel like, oh, I can't pitch if I didn't do this one thing. You don't want it to turn into that. But I think it's something that, routine is important, and sticking to it when the days you don't really want to do it can really help you, progress in your mental game. Because you're going to get into that fear, especially if you didn't do anything or you didn't do your routine just because you didn't feel like it. And then you get into the game and in the back of your mind, you're like, I didn't lift, I didn't run, I didn't throw my bullpen, I didn't throw to a target when I was playing catch with my partner. There's a lot of things you can think of like, oh crap, I didn't do because you didn't go through your routine. So it's kind of, there's goods and there's, pros and cons, but I think the hardest thing to do is, especially as a baseball player, because there's so much failure in the game, I feel like people can get in that thing where they're like, oh yeah, I got this routine. And then they either have a bad string of pitching games or they go in a hitting slump. And then they're like, oh, I got to change this. That's not necessarily always the case. Sometimes showing self-discipline is doubling down on those routines and practice habits that you formed that, see if it's really that, or, baseball, you just fail. Sometimes you don't do well. And we're going to get into failing as well, because Bauer referenced that. He talked about, failing in practice, but we're going to get into that anyways. The third thing is perseverance, or being able to persevere, or having the ability to overcome adversity. Every sport has adversity. Life has adversity. You can't avoid it. It's just, doesn't matter where you're at spiritually. If you look at Job, he went through a lot of, adversity. It's just, it's going to be there. You're going to face it at some point. So instead of figuring out a way to run away from it, you might as well just learn how to deal with it head on and, come out on top, or just, look at it as a way to learn and then bounce back from it. So perseverance, let's say, just for an example, this has happened to me before. You come into a ball game. We'll give an example, a real example with details and everything. So I just get called up to Columbus, AAA with the Guardians, and I'm coming in. It's my first appearance in AAA in years. I went to AAA in 2013, but that was just like a spot start. So this one was like my first real appearance, and I had been doing well that season. 2016 AA, I was dominating, and first pitch. I actually, let me set the scene some more. There was a whole bunch of people in the stands that knew me, not like 20,000 fans overall, but just a lot of people that knew me. They were there to see me, there to cheer me on. And the first pitch I throw, and I'm not going to go into details why I threw this pitch, but the first pitch I throw gets hit about 800 feet, just disappears into the night, by Dean Green, and just didn't get my AAA career started off on the right foot. But in my mind at that point in time, I was in a good spot mentally, you know. And I would say during my career, I was pretty mentally fragile. It wasn't hard to break me mentally, but it was more of what I did. You know, so if I give up a hit or something like that, it really wouldn't mess me up, but it was just something I would do that would throw me for a loop. But yeah, so Dean Green hits that home run, and instead of thinking, oh gosh, I don't deserve to be here, you know, I had done everything before the game that I needed to do. I was mentally prepared. Everything was ready. I just knew that, hey, the catcher called a fastball outside. That's not what was, you know, making me successful at the level before. So I just buckled down and said, hey, you know, I made a mistake. I'm going to throw what I want to throw. I'm not going to just, you know, bow to the catcher, you know, because we'll get into that too. That could be a video about conviction and how to work with your catcher and realizing that the pitch you want to throw is the best pitch. But that's a different video. But yeah, so I should have thrown it inside. I had just faced Dean Green in Double-A and was pretty successful against him. So I kind of let that just get away from me and give in. The catcher had big league time, and he was older than me, so I was like, oh, whatever. But yeah, so I was able to get back on track, and I ended up being the closer for Columbus and having, you know, a couple great months in Columbus before I got called up to Cleveland. And that's just an example of being able to persevere, you know. Now, if I was in a different spot, like, we'll tell you the opposite. So in Columbus, they built the field, and they did not put in bullpens. So where you warm up is just kind of right there on the field. Like, if you throw a bad pitch, you could hit the first base coach. So obviously, being mentally fragile over here, I hated warming up in Columbus. Hated it. And it would kind of mess with my routine a little bit. You know, I was afraid to throw a curveball because if I buried it too much, then it would go crazy and get on the field and stop the game, and everyone's looking like, who's this idiot throwing the baseball into the field? So that was my thought process. And that's when the fear would get in. But so an example of not persevering was just letting that just snowball into even worse thoughts, to where I'm like, crap, I don't even want to go in the game. And that's where you do not want to be. So that is something that you kind of try to avoid. And that comes with, you know, preparing yourself for that situation. I mean, I'm in Columbus. I'm throwing out of the bullpen. I know that I'm going to have to throw in there. So preparing yourself and figuring out ways to get yourself mentally ready to throw in that situation instead of, you know, having to just break you down, can help you out. So there is perseverance, or ability to handle adversity. It's funny how I can handle, you know, family members, parents dying, and a lot of other things, but you put me on a field with a bullpen right there near the foul line, and I just fall apart. So I would like to think that if I was put in that situation right now, I'd be fine. And I always say, if I had been as confident as I am talking in front of the camera, in front of people, I'd probably still be pitching, but whatever. Another thing that I want to, you know, the final thing I want to touch on is fear. So everyone's aware what fear is, so to speak. But I feel like a lot of people don't know that it's basically all like created in your head. So it's just not rationally thinking is how fear comes into play. And I was the king of that. But yeah, fear, you know, sometimes I was just paralyzed by fear. I just felt like I don't know how to pitch now. You know, like if I threw this ball onto the field and the play stopped, I would freeze up. And it'd be mid-game and I'd be doing that. So obviously I wasn't performing at the tip-top level that I should have been, but it was something that I was going through, and fear played a big part in my successes and my failures. Just a quick example, I was, you know, dominant after giving up that 800-foot home run to Dean Green. I was pretty dominant the rest of the way until about, I want to say, right, like a couple weeks before I got called up to Cleveland for my debut. I had assumed that I wasn't going to pitch, which is, you know what happens when we assume, but I assumed I wasn't going to pitch because I'd pitched back-to-back days, or and I was getting thrown a lot. And there were some pitchers who hadn't thrown in 10 days, but that's where I figured out that AAA is a little different than AA. So I didn't even wear a jersey. I just had like a fleece over, didn't even have my cleats on. And the pitching coach goes, "Hey, Perci, get warm." And I thought he was joking. I'm like, "Ha." And he's like, "No, seriously." So I'm like, crap, not prepared at all. And I come in the game, I didn't even get a warm-up pitch. Come into the game, and it's just, talk about unprepared. And it was just a dumpster fire. And I don't know if I've ever used that word, but it was not good. And that started the downward spiral, literally right before I got called up to Cleveland. So it was a struggle, but enough about me. Fear is a thing that I believe we all can overcome just with preparation. Now I'm seeing the theme is preparation. That obviously breeds confidence. And so what we're going to get into with Trevor Bauer, that might actually make sense, what he's talking about. Now, let's see if my scenes work properly. Let's go to split screen. All right. Now, I hope you guys can hear this, but let's hear.
The mental game is something that...
Oh, wait, is that going to come through here? Is that coming through? Let me see.
I don't know where I stand on the mental game. I think that a lot of times the mental game gets kind of overblown.
It's playing back double, but who cares?
In the sense that you try all these techniques, breathe and visualize and this and that, check a card and settle yourself down on the mound, and it's important in some way as you're growing and you're learning how to handle certain situations, but I think the best thing you can do mentally, at least what's worked for me, is put in the work beforehand. So you go out there feeling super prepared. And
now we're getting back to that prepared, super prepared, he says, which I agree with. I heard Roy Halladay say it. I heard Cliff Lee, Cole Hamels. They all said preparation breeds confidence. And I always thought success breeds confidence. But he says something else interesting coming up here. And I'm trying to wrap my head around it. But let's just get to it. What's this? I'm changing it to full screen. What's that? Okay, yeah, let's do that.
And get comfortable with failure in practice. So force yourself in the gym to fail, force yourself in training to fail, make training hard so that when you do fail and you come right back and you do well, you program your mind to say, okay, yep, that sucked. I just gave up a 3-run homer, but I'm going to execute this pitch, where you don't even have to think about it because it's just ingrained in you because you do it so often in practice. What really gets people in...
Now, I get what he's saying, and I semi-agree with that. But failing lifting weights, or maybe failing in a bullpen, is a little bit different than the humiliation that you might feel when you're giving up a home run in front of fans, in front of your family, in front of ESPN, in front of your teammates, your coaches. It's a different feeling. I understand what he's saying, but maybe he's just mentally strong, stronger than I am, obviously. And I just know for me, I failed plenty of times in the bullpen. That didn't make me feel better in the game. But, and maybe his opinion has changed. This is, again, October of 2021. But, and he goes on to talk about just how preparation and getting used to failure is a way to, alleviate, being, mentally fragile. Now, I'm paraphrasing. And, Trevor, he was my locker mate. Probably doesn't remember me. I remember him commenting because he, heard that I had thrown hard, and then I was not hitting 99 in my debut, and he was severely disappointed. He let me know, but I just think there's a difference, and maybe this works. This works for him, for some other people. I just know for me, I had faced hard training in college because I played college football, and that didn't really lead to confidence or being able to bounce back in sporting events for me. But I would like you to take his tips as something that you can work on. Try it out for yourself. I know for me, preparation is very important, no matter what it is. But I know that his suggestion or the way he looks at it is doesn't resonate with me. And he says, I think I skipped it, but he talks about maybe it's a little overblown, a little bit, the mental game. And I'm not sure. I know when I was playing, it was overlooked, but now I know it's becoming more popular. There were some teams when I was playing that had a mental coach, and there were some teams that didn't. So you never know. But I kind of want to leave that thought and question with you. I think mental health is very important, and I think working on your mental health is very important to life in general. So take it from me, someone who has struggled with the mental game and mental health in life. That I think it's something that we should focus on in our life as much as we do our physical. I know a lot of people who work out, a lot of people who eat certain things, but I think you need to treat your mind the same way. And if you want to go to extra mile, so we can think about preparing ourselves with routine, self-discipline, adversity, and fear, but even what you put in your mind on a daily basis. Think about that. If you feel that you put some bad things in your mind, whether that's music, movies, if you watch adult videos on the internet, all that stuff has an effect on your mind. You may not think it does, but it does. I've studied a little psychology in college, and it's definitely a thing that you may not think affects you, but that's why marketing and commercials and all that stuff is the way it is, because we are affected by what's being put in front of our face all the time. So just think about that next time you're listening, watching, something, saying or thinking to yourself. Something that you're thinking to yourself is important. If you struggle with, wanting approval from other people, that's just you thinking their opinion is stronger or means more than your own of yourself. Hopefully I said that right. But your opinion of yourself should matter more than some stranger on the internet. So again, think about that next time you're putting something in your mind that isn't great. Whether you're thinking something to yourself that isn't great, try to correct that and combat that and put something positive in there. So, man, hopefully you guys like the beginning graphics. Starting to enjoy this. The next one we're going to talk about. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about holding runners. We'll talk about, being able to not get stolen on every pitch you throw. People, and these are all recommendations I posted on Facebook and people responded. We're going to talk about, different exercises, maybe for rehab. I've never had to do an extensive rehab, so my experience with that isn't that, extensive. So, but then we can talk about grips of pitches as well. The one thing I do want to talk about is working with a catcher in conviction. Obviously, that led to a 500-foot home run for me, but I want to prevent that with you guys. So working with a catcher is very important, and not being intimidated by your catcher and believing in yourself and the pitch you want to throw. Even if it's technically the wrong pitch, the pitch you want to throw is better, always. So, and then we'll look at lower body, leg, hips, hip, leg lift, your drive and everything. Trevor Bauer also has a video on his mechanics, and he has like, I think 8 pillars to a delivery. It's a little bit different take than I have, but I'm not really a big mechanics guy, because when I thought mechanics, kind of mess, and I would not be an athlete anymore. But that could go back to the mental stuff. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning into the video. Plan on maybe doing these twice a week again. But appreciate the feedback as well. And if you're enjoying the content, make sure you like and subscribe. I hate saying it, but I feel like I need to. Also, pitching Discord down in the description. Join there. It's growing slowly, but I just want to cultivate a little community where we can talk about pitching and baseball and grow to other things. But right now I want to focus on baseball. I just love Discord. I feel like it's Notion and Discord are my 2 favorite applications in the world right now. But yeah, so quick recap: holding runners, shoulder exercises, lower body mechanics, grips, working with catchers, and throwing with conviction. Just a reminder, we have covered why young people shouldn't throw curveballs, icing your arm. We've already covered routines, but we might touch on it a little bit. We've covered arm care, but we might touch on some things we missed. The last live stream we did was wind up versus the stretch. And we also talked about, improving all your pitches and throwing hard. So still a lot of things to cover. We're going to keep it going. And if you got suggestions, leave a comment down below. And yeah, I guess we'll see you guys next stream. Peace.